Vulgar, unclean, poisonous, stupid, homoerotic, pointless, with an ending that is, and I further quote, coarse and crude. Just a few of the words Victorian critics had to say about the book I'm about to review here. It was released to great critical panning in 1890, with the author himself saying he'd thrown away 216 of these critiques into his wastepaper basket. Hello readers and those otherwise curious. Welcome to DanWhiteBooks, and in today's video I'll be reviewing a classic, and that is Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray. Now let me ask you a question. Do you fear time? More specifically, do you fear what time's passing will do to you and your body? Do you fear age? Do you fear the lines or even further lines soon to be pressed upon your face? Do you fear waking up one day to look in the mirror and see further not who you were, but instead what you have become? Well, hold that thought. Our story begins in the studio of painter Basil Hallward. The smell of roses hits the nose, while outside a wind stirs among the trees. He stands with his friend Lord Henry Wotton, known simply in this book as Lord Henry, and both are admiring Basil's latest creation, the beautiful portrait of a man described by Oscar Wilde as a person of an extraordinary personal beauty. From here, to quote the title, is the picture of Dorian Gray. But who is this man? Well, Dorian Gray is to Basil Hallward something of a treasure. He is a reason for living, a breath of fresh air, a person who instills wonder into his art. In fact, when Lord Henry mentions he would like to meet Dorian at Basil's continuing praise, Basil refuses, afraid his friendship with this young man will change. However, persistence perseveres. Minutes later, Dorian Gray is invited into the studio, and here our main characters come together for the first time. A discussion ensues, as it so often does with Lord Henry throughout this book. It's a discussion of most importance. It's a discussion about youth, and how fleeting it is. To Lord Henry, youth is the one thing worth having. Dorian Gray is indeed a beautiful man with the youth of the world in his eyes and across his face. He is striking, captivating, charming. Yet at the words of Lord Henry, he begins to realise something. Looking at the painting of himself, he realises that it will not bear the mark of age. It, or rather he, in the painting, will stay forever as it was, from the day it was painted till his very death. The canvas may age, but the person will not. It will not bear the mark of, will say as Wilde does, the soul, the actions of a sinful life. No, it will stay the same, while the young Dorian Gray will change, now convinced by Lord Henry that his charm and looks are one of the most important things in his life. He begins to feel sad at the curse we all must endure, the simple fact of aging. He wants to swap places with the painting, becomes jealous of it. If only I could always be what I am now, he cries. To Basil's horror, Dorian's mood changes completely, and he leaves rather changed by the statements of Lord Henry. This is the basis for this novel. Soon later, Dorian takes his painting home, first not wanting to, stating that it will mock him throughout time, but after a rather horrible act Dorian commits, he realises something has changed in that portrait of himself, so much that he covers it up, not wanting to look. A wish he muttered in anger appears to have come true. Dorian rejects a girl he was once deeply in love with, simply because her love for him is too strong. This girl is head over heels for him and willing to commit to everything. When Dorian learns the news that after he's rejected her in a heartless fashion, she's killed herself, the painting so innocent on the wall seems to develop something hard to describe, and almost pleasure for pain comes from the expression. The lips are slightly raised, the marks of the mouth are somehow different. And so not only does this painting capture the age of a person, but also the sin, the acts that cause suffering and displeasure. This book is quite amazing in the way it develops Dorian's character. In fact, it goes beyond that. The character development of Dorian Gray is exceptional. The once innocent youth we meet at the beginning of the book becomes obsessed with pleasure, ever swayed by the opinions of Lord Henry, who shares many unconventional and shocking beliefs. Dorian keeps his youth, but something changes about him. People feel it. Rumours spread. He is charming, yet for no good reason. His face is a mask, and one that does not show regret, despair, horror, or resentment after many, many years. It shows simply the charms and innocence of youth. But it's wrong. Everyone close to Dorian seems to lose their way by some awful means or another, and Dorian, despite looking so charming and delicate, is a perpetrator of misery. It's a beautiful juxtaposition and it is handled expertly throughout the book. The reader will indeed dislike Dorian as time passes, but still characters who don't know him will find him quite charming. And so you have a wonderful contrast of why items or people should not be taken at face value, and why a man should not merely and carelessly chase the pursuits of pleasure, as this bears upon one's soul and, as Wilde hints at, shows upon his face. The word we're looking for here to describe Dorian is one of my favourites, that being hedonistic, quite simply seeking pleasure and avoiding or rejecting suffering, but at what cost? Pleasure, 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 but at what cost? What about others? What of the suffering of others? Should you ignore it? Should you ignore them? Seeking pleasure so much may indeed stop you from ever enjoying it, because what wonderful things can happen when we don't seek to find them? But not for Dorian, and so that there is this young man's true curse. The curse of pleasure at the expense of any real happiness. So my rating, well, should you read this book? Yes, you should. It is a very great read, but I must warn, it is a piece of older literature, so stick with it. Keep going with this book because it gets a hell of a lot better. It's not a breezy read, but it is certainly a worthwhile read. It is controversial for the descriptions and relationships between the male characters. For its time, it was revered, seen as a book that wholly deals with the dark nature of humanity and all of its selfishness. But books don't all need to follow the status quo, and the fact this one did not is the essence of why it has been so successful and enduring. It dared to break a mould and critique human society and natures, particularly of its own time. With this in mind, the picture of Dorian Gray scores from me a 91 out of 100. I would certainly recommend you read it. Just don't go thinking this is a beautiful flowery tale, because it was never intended to be so, and in breaking this mould, it becomes something deeply pleasurable in and of itself. My friends, thank you very much for watching. If you would like to buy this book, there will be a link below to Amazon where it will help out this channel. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe or like. There'll be plenty more book reviews to come, and I'm also working on future content. If you want to see what I'm reading right now, head over to my Goodreads. That's Goodreads/DanWhiteBooks, and you can see what I'm reading. I hope you're keeping safe out there, and I thank you so much for watching. Dorian Gray, 91 out of 100. Goodbye.